The rain fell in violent, sideways sheets against the tall glass windows of the Loron estate, the wind howling like a beast denied entry. Inside the mansion, warmth was a lie. The chandelier-lit halls were sterile, immaculate, and cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Everything about the place screamed wealth, but none of it felt alive. In the center of it all stood Celeste Loron, barefoot on the marble floor, a half-empty glass of whiskey dangling carelessly from her hand. Her eyes were sharp, glacial, and disinterested, locked on the papers strewn across her desk like casualties of a war she had no intention of losing. She was 32, an empire builder, a woman carved from steel and silence, whose name alone turned boardrooms into battlegrounds. And she had no use for love. That emotion, messy, illogical, weak, had no place in her perfectly calculated world. So when she heard the faint knock at the servant entrance, followed by the sound of wet shoes timidly stepping onto her pristine floors, her expression soured. "You're late," she snapped without turning. "The schedule said 6. It's 7:30. A voice, quiet but not timid, responded behind her. "I came as fast as I could. The buses were delayed." Celeste finally turned. Her gaze landed on a soaked young woman in her mid-20s, clutching a duffel bag and looking like she didn't belong in a place this polished. Her uniform clung to her skin, and her curly dark hair was damp, sticking to her neck. There was defiance in her brown eyes, though, something that made Celeste blink once, an involuntary reaction she immediately hated. "Name," Celeste demanded. "Isadora." "You speak like you're not afraid of me." "Should I be?" That made Celeste's lips twitch. Not a smile. Not yet. But something shifted. Isadora had been sent by the agency as a live-in maid, a last-minute replacement after Celeste had fired the previous one for folding towels incorrectly. She hadn't expected much. She especially hadn't expected someone who looked like that. And sounded like that. "You'll clean the East Wing first. Don't touch my office. Don't speak unless spoken to." Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. Don't ever be late again. Celeste turned back to her whiskey, assuming the conversation was over. But Isadora didn't move. "Do you always drink alone in the dark?" Celeste froze. The question hung in the air, absurd in its boldness. Slowly, she faced the maid again. "Excuse me?"
"Sorry."
"I just forget it."
"No."
"Say it." Isadora's eyes held hers. "I said it seems lonely. This house."
"You."
"All of it." A long silence stretched between them, a silent war of stares. Celeste felt something she hadn't in years, the faintest crack in her armor. Then she laughed once, bitter and short. "Get to work." But as Isadora turned, Celeste's gaze lingered. It shouldn't have. She didn't notice beautiful things, not anymore. She noticed efficiency, precision, control. But there was something about the way Isadora walked away without lowering her eyes. Something that made Celeste drink deeper. That night, Celeste couldn't sleep. She walked her halls like a ghost, half hoping to hear footsteps that didn't belong. She found herself standing outside the maid's quarters, hand hovering above the door, furious with herself for even thinking about knocking. The next morning, she was colder than ever. Orders barked. Doors slammed. She wouldn't let a stranger get close. Wouldn't let softness undo her. But when she saw Isadora in the garden, sleeves rolled up, hair wild in the breeze as she argued gently with the gardener about the placement of lilies, Celeste felt something unnameable stir again. And she hated it. That evening, she watched Isadora from the shadows. Studied her as she hummed softly while cleaning the piano Celeste hadn't touched in years. She watched the curve of her smile, the light in her eyes, and something inside her shifted. For the first time in a long time, Celeste felt unsafe in her own home. Not because of any threat, but because of something far more dangerous. Feeling. She gripped the edge of the balcony rail, her knuckles white. She would fire her. Send her away. Tomorrow. But she knew, deep in the part of her soul she swore didn't exist, that she wouldn't. Not yet. The next morning arrived cloaked in gray, the sky heavy with unspent rain and the scent of damp earth lingering in the breeze that slipped through the open French doors of the east sitting room. Celeste was already awake, seated in a wingback chair with a cup of black coffee untouched at her side and the latest quarterly report glowing coldly on her tablet screen. But her eyes weren't on the numbers. They were fixed on the security camera feed tucked in the corner of the screen, specifically the one showing the kitchen. Isadora was there. She wore her uniform differently than the others had, sleeves rolled up to the elbow, apron slightly askew, curls piled up messily on her head. She was humming again. It grated on Celeste's nerves, not because it was unpleasant, but because it was too pleasant, a soft, unbothered melody in a house built on silence. Celeste hated that she had listened long enough to recognize it. She swiped the feed away with irritation, setting the tablet down harder than necessary. What was wrong with her? This girl was a maid, nothing more. She was here to clean, organize, and vanish into the walls like the others. Celeste didn't watch staff. She didn't think about them. And yet, when she walked past the kitchen 20 minutes later and saw Isadora dancing lightly across the tiles as she wiped the counters, her fingers twirling the cloth like a ribbon, Celeste stopped walking. Just for a second. Then she moved again, footsteps sharp. Isadora, she called, and the maid jumped slightly, caught mid-spin. Do you think this is a theater? Sorry, Isadora said, catching her breath, but not sounding truly apologetic. It's just music. Helps me think. I don't pay you to think, Celeste snapped. I pay you to work. Isadora's expression didn't falter. And I do. The kitchen is spotless. Celeste glanced around. Damn it, it was. Spotless. Gleaming. She hated how pleased that made her. Don't do it again, she muttered. Yes, ma'am. The way Isadora said ma'am wasn't submissive. It was teasing, almost like she knew it irked Celeste and enjoyed doing it anyway. Celeste walked away faster than she meant to. That afternoon, the mansion hosted a charity board meeting. Men in tailored suits and women in tasteful jewels filled the main hall, sipping imported champagne and pretending to care about causes that would never touch their lives. Celeste stood at the center of it all, regal and untouchable in a black pantsuit, so sharp it could wound. Her voice was cool, her words calculated. She was everything they expected her to be. But then she saw Isadora, emerging from the side hall with a tray of canapes, had bowed just enough to pass unnoticed, but her eyes flicking up once, meeting Celeste's across the room. And that second, shook something loose inside Celeste. Her breath hitched. Her skin flushed hot. She looked away instantly, furious with herself. After the event, Celeste locked herself in her study and poured a drink. The storm from the previous night had left the garden soaked, and the windows trembled softly with leftover wind. She tried to read, to work, to think. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw her. That damn maid. Later that evening, she found Isadora in the library of all places, curled into the far corner with a tattered book in her lap. You're not allowed in here, Celeste said sharply. Isadora looked up, startled but not embarrassed. The gardener said the library was never used. You thought wrong. Celeste stepped inside. That book doesn't belong to you. It was on the floor. I didn't think anyone would miss it. And what could someone like you possibly find in an old Russian novel? Celeste asked, her voice biting. Isadora's gaze narrowed. I didn't know books were assigned to people based on income. Celeste blinked. Are you always this difficult? Only when people expect me to be invisible. The room fell silent again. Celeste crossed her arms, leaning against the door frame. That's how things work here. Well, Isadora said, closing the book gently, maybe the system's broken. Celeste should have fired her. Then and there. But instead she said, that book is mine.
Tolstoy.
First edition. Careful with the spine. Isadora looked down at the cover and smiled faintly. I'll be gentle. The choice of words landed between them with the weight of something unspeakable. Celeste's heart gave a traitorous thud. She turned sharply and walked away without another word, hating the heat rising in her throat. That night, again, she couldn't sleep. And this time, She didn't even try to pretend it was the wind keeping her up. Days passed. Isadora became a fixture in the mansion, quietly efficient, occasionally infuriating, always present in a way Celeste couldn't ignore. She never overstepped, but she never cowered either. She left notes on Celeste's coffee when it was too bitter. She rearranged the laundry room because the flow was a disaster. And one morning, Celeste found a single gardenia on her desk. No note, no explanation, just the flower.
White.
Fragile. Beautiful. She asked every staff member. No one knew anything. But deep down, she did. And she hated how it made her smile. The sun had barely crested the hills when Celeste stepped onto the balcony outside her bedroom, the morning air crisp with the lingering dampness of the last week's rain. She sipped her coffee slowly, eyes scanning the estate grounds below like a queen surveying her domain, but her thoughts weren't on business deals or foundation grants. They were on a single, stupid, delicate white gardenia. It had haunted her all night. Its meaning, its sender, the why of it. She hadn't confronted Isadora about it, couldn't. To do that would be to admit that she had been affected, that she had cared, that she had kept the flower on her nightstand, which she had, pressed between the pages of that damn Tolstoy novel, no less. And now, she stood here like a fool, hoping to spot a maid who shouldn't even be occupying her thoughts. She hated it. She hated her. She hated herself more. At exactly 7:05 a.m., Isadora appeared below, walking with purpose across the garden path, a tray in hand. She paused for a moment, glancing up, right at Celeste. Like she knew she'd be there. Celeste didn't move, didn't blink, just held the stare across the open air between them until Isadora disappeared into the kitchen door. That day, the house felt different. Warmer. More alive. As if Celeste's rigid grip on its atmosphere was slowly loosening. Staff smiled more. Music drifted faintly from hidden corners. Even the plants looked less hostile. Celeste noticed it all. And she resented it. Around noon, she passed Isadora in the hallway. The girl had a feather duster in one hand and a headphone in the other, bobbing her head slightly to a song she didn't realize was audible. Celeste slowed. "You're not allowed to listen to music on duty." Isadora pulled the headphone out and raised an eyebrow. "Is that in the rulebook?" "I am the rulebook." "That sounds exhausting." Celeste narrowed her eyes. "You really have no fear, do you?" "Not of you," Isadora said softly. "Should I?" The hallway was empty. The moment hung between them, thick with something unspoken. Celeste stepped closer. Too close. "You should be careful," she murmured. "Sometimes I make people disappear." "Then make me disappear," Isadora challenged. "Right here. Right now." Celeste stared at her. She didn't move.
Didn't speak.
Her fingers twitched at her sides. Then she turned and walked away without a word, pulse slamming through her veins like war drums. That evening, Celeste's assistant, Claudine, found her in the study with a stack of paperwork completely untouched. "You're distracted," Claudine said bluntly. "I'm busy," Celeste snapped. "You're watching security footage of the greenhouse." Claudine pointed at the screen. Again. Celeste clicked the tablet off. "Get out." Claudine smirked. "She's pretty. And young." "You're fired," Celeste said coldly. "Sure," Claudine muttered, walking away. "Just don't be cruel to her for making you feel something." The words hit like a slap. That night, Celeste drank too much. She wandered the halls again, always ending up closer to the servant quarters than she meant to. She heard laughter behind a closed door. Isadora's voice.
Soft.
Unfiltered.
Alive.
Celeste pressed her fingers to her temples. She needed to get a grip. This was madness. The next morning, she was harsher than ever.
Cold.
Distant. Commands were short. Tone was clipped. She refused to look Isadora in the eyes. During lunch, she broke a glass on purpose just to send the girl away from the room. She had to remind herself who she was. What she wasn't. That evening, Isadora came to her office. Uninvited. Holding a folded piece of paper. "What is this?" Celeste asked, glancing up, clearly irritated. "My schedule," Isadora replied. You added 12 more tasks. I wanted to confirm you meant it. Celeste took the paper. Do you think I make mistakes?
No.
I think you're avoiding me. That was too much. Too forward. Celeste stood, slow and deliberate. You forget your place, she said, voice low, dangerous. And you forget you hired someone, not a shadow. Isadora shot back. You want me to be quiet, invisible, efficient. I can be. But don't get angry when I become real and it scares you. Celeste's hand tightened around the edge of the desk. You think I'm scared of you? I think you're scared of yourself, Isadora said. Of what you feel. Of not being made of ice after all. Silence. Breathless, terrifying silence. Celeste stepped around the desk slowly, closing the space between them. Isadora didn't move. You don't know me, Celeste said, voice dangerously quiet. No, Isadora whispered. But I think I see you. The words cracked something open inside Celeste, too raw, too fast. Her hand lifted, brushing Isadora's arm before she caught herself and pulled back like she'd touched fire. Leave, she said. But the command didn't carry weight. Fine, Isadora murmured. But I won't apologize for not being afraid of you. And she left, the door shutting with soft finality. Celeste stood in the silence afterward, chest heaving, heart racing, fingers still tingling where they'd nearly touched. She stared at the door long after Isadora was gone. The storm was no longer outside. It was in her. Celeste didn't sleep that night. Not for lack of trying. She lay still in the dark, eyes open, heart a steady thrum beneath her ribs like an alarm she couldn't silence. The mansion around her was quiet, deceptively so, but her mind was chaos. Images of Isadora flooded every corner of her consciousness. The way her lips had parted when she spoke without fear, the spark in her eyes when she pushed back, the maddening way she stood her ground without trembling. No one had dared speak to Celeste Laurent like that in years. No one had seen her in years. She woke early, restless, agitated, her sharpness dulled by something she didn't yet have the language to name. She spent the morning holed up in her study, snapping at Claudine, canceling 2 meetings, ignoring calls. Her company could survive a day of chaos. She couldn't. At noon, she heard soft footsteps pause outside her door. A knock.
Light.
Hesitant. What? She barked. The door cracked open. Isadora. She stepped inside slowly, holding a fresh cup of coffee. Thought you might want a refill, she said.
Her tone was different now. Softer.
Not unsure, but less brazen. Like she, too, had been shaken by the previous night. Celeste stared at her for a long second before nodding toward the desk. Isadora placed the mug down carefully. I didn't mean to overstep, she said. But I meant what I said. Celeste didn't respond. Her fingers tapped slowly against the desk surface. Do you know why no one stays long in this house? She asked finally. Isadora tilted her head. Because you make it hard for people to feel human? Celeste gave a short, humorless laugh. Because when people get too close, I end them. Professionally. Personally. Emotionally. I destroy things before they have the chance to matter. Maybe, Isadora said gently, that's why you've built a life where nothing can matter. Celeste's jaw clenched. Why are you here, really? I needed the job.
No.
Why are you still here? Isadora's eyes held hers. Because you fascinate me. The silence between them was thick, alive with tension. Celeste stood slowly, walking around the desk again, closer this time. The room shrank around them. You don't know what I'm capable of, she said. Maybe not, Isadora whispered. But I know what I see. And what do you see? A woman who's dying to be touched but terrified to feel. Celeste's breath caught. Her hand lifted slowly, almost involuntarily, brushing a stray curl from Isadora's face. The contact was fleeting but electric. Isadora didn't flinch. You shouldn't touch me, Celeste murmured. Then don't, Isadora replied. Celeste's fingers hovered. But she didn't pull back. You make it impossible to think, she whispered. Good, Isadora said, voice trembling just slightly. You think too much. A knock broke the moment like shattered glass. Claudine's voice. Miss Laurent, Your car's ready. You're due at the board meeting. Celeste stepped back instantly, retreating behind her armor. You may go, she said to Isadora, her tone clipped cold. The warmth in her eyes vanished. Isadora nodded once and turned, the door shutting behind her like the end of a sentence neither was ready to finish. At the board meeting, Celeste was sharper than ever. Ruthless. Efficient. Not a crack showed. But her mind was back at the mansion, back in that room. Back in that almost touch that had nearly brought her to her knees. That night, the house was too quiet again. Celeste walked the halls without reason, restless in a way that made her angry. She ended up in the music room, staring at the grand piano that hadn't been played in years. She sat, let her fingers find the keys, played something soft, melancholy. Behind her, a quiet voice spoke. That was beautiful. Celeste froze. I thought you were in bed. I was. Then I heard something I didn't recognize and followed it. Isadora stood in the doorway, barefoot, hair down, wrapped in a loose gray cardigan. She looked impossibly soft. Celeste stood too quickly, the bench scraping against the floor. You shouldn't be wandering the halls at night. And yet, Isadora smiled. Here I am. Celeste crossed her arms. You think this is a game? No, Isadora said, stepping forward. I think it's a war. And you're losing. Celeste laughed once.
Low.
Bitter. You're the most infuriating woman I've ever met. I've been called worse. Isadora reached out, tentatively, fingers brushing Celeste's wrist. Celeste tensed, but didn't move. Her breath came shallow. Her eyes dropped to their hands. If you're going to touch me, she said quietly, you'd better mean it. I always do, Isadora replied. And with that, she stepped closer, her body a breath away, her warmth undeniable. Her hand slid to Celeste's cheek, soft, reverent. Celeste's eyes fluttered shut. Tell me to stop, Isadora whispered. But Celeste couldn't, wouldn't, didn't. Instead, she leaned in, just enough for her forehead to press against Isadora's, her defenses slipping like silk through her fingers. You're ruining me, she whispered. No, Isadora breathed. I'm waking you up. The door creaked suddenly somewhere down the hall, and they broke apart instantly. The spell shattered. Celeste stepped back, trembling, furious with herself. Go, she said, before I do something stupid. Isadora hesitated. What if I want you to? Celeste's eyes flared with panic. Then we're both in trouble. Isadora left. Celeste stood alone in the music room, hands shaking, the echo of her own heartbeat louder than any note she'd played. The next morning arrived like a betrayal. The sunlight was too golden, too bright, too honest for a woman who'd barely slept, who had spent the last few hours reliving a moment she should have buried the second it happened. Celeste stood at the mirror, trying to reassemble herself with sharp lines and colder eyes, but even the reflection fought her. Her skin still tingled where Isadora had touched her. Her lips still burned with the kiss that hadn't happened. And the worst part? She wanted it to happen. Again. Desperately. She slammed the drawer shut, splintering the wood. She wasn't this woman. Wasn't weak. Wasn't reckless. Wasn't ruled by feelings. And yet, when she stepped out into the hall and heard Isadora's laughter drifting from the kitchen, something in her ached. Not lust. Not exactly. Longing. And it terrified her. She walked into the kitchen like a storm, her heels loud, her energy colder than steel. The room fell silent instantly. Staff turned, tensed. Isadora didn't flinch. Laurent, she greeted, too casual. Too normal. As if nothing had happened. Celeste's jaw tightened. Follow me.
Now.
Isadora handed off the tray she was holding and followed her through the hall, without a word. When they reached the sunroom, Celeste shut the door behind them. We need to get something very clear, she said, voice low. Last night, that was a mistake. Isadora folded her arms.
Why?
Because you work for me. Because I'm not who you think I am. Because I don't do whatever this is. You don't do feeling? Isadora asked. You don't do vulnerability? Intimacy. Celeste's eyes flared. I don't do weakness. No, Isadora said softly. You run from it. Don't psychoanalyze me, Celeste snapped. You've known me 5 minutes. I've watched you push away everyone who tries to care. That's not time. That's pattern. Celeste turned, needing space, needing distance. Her hands shook slightly, so she curled them into fists. I'm not asking for anything from you, Isadora said behind her. I just want to know if you felt it too. If I'm insane, or if that moment meant something. Silence. Crushing, dangerous silence. Celeste didn't answer.
Couldn't.
Her walls were too high, her instincts too sharp. But in her silence, she said everything. And Isadora knew it. She left the room quietly. Celeste stayed frozen in place for a long time after, staring at the floor like it might offer answers she didn't have the courage to say aloud. The rest of the day passed in shadow. Celeste kept herself hidden in meetings and spreadsheets, pouring every ounce of her confusion into productivity. Isadora did her work silently, perfectly, avoiding her gaze. But the energy between them was unbearable. Static in every room. Heat in every glance. That night, the house was hosting a private dinner for a potential investor. Claudine insisted on perfect service. Celeste insisted on Isadora being assigned to the event. Are you sure? Claudine asked, eyeing her. She's not trained for high-profile events. She'll adapt, Celeste replied, cool and indifferent. But her heart pounded. She watched Isadora closely as the evening began. The way she moved, elegant, composed, completely unfazed, was maddening. The investor, a middle-aged man with slick charm and greedy eyes, noticed her too. He watched Isadora like a predator, letting his gaze linger too long. Celeste's blood boiled. She said nothing, did nothing, until he reached out, fingers brushing Isadora's wrist as she poured wine. Delicate hands, he murmured. Wasted on housework. Isadora flinched. Not visibly, but enough that Celeste noticed. She stood instantly. Mr. Devereaux, she said, voice cold as ice. You're no longer welcome here. He blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. I'm about to sign a $2 million contract with your company. Then take your money elsewhere, Celeste said, already walking to the door. Claudine will show you out. The room fell silent. Isadora stood frozen, stunned. When the investor was gone, Claudine shot her a look. Want to tell me what that was? Unacceptable behavior, Celeste replied. Or are we tolerating that now? Claudine didn't answer. Isadora approached slowly. You didn't have to do that. Yes, Celeste said. I did. You just blew up a deal for me. It wasn't for you. Then what was it? Celeste looked at her. Really looked at her. He touched something that wasn't his. Isadora's breath hitched. Am I yours now? Celeste stepped closer. I don't know what you are, she whispered. But you're not his. The air between them ignited again. Isadora's hand lifted, slow, tentative, but Celeste caught it, held it, pressed it against her own chest. Her heartbeat thundered beneath Isadora's fingers. Do you feel that? Celeste asked. I don't feel anything for anyone. But with you, she shook her head, broken, desperate. I don't know how to not feel. Then stop fighting it, Isadora whispered. And then Celeste kissed her. Fierce, hungry, unrestrained. She crushed her mouth to Isadora's like the act itself was the only thing keeping her alive. Isadora kissed back just as hard, her fingers tangling in Celeste's hair, her body arching into her like she'd been waiting for this all her life. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, trembling, everything between them had changed. What now? Isadora asked, voice shaky. Celeste's eyes burned. Now I burn, she said. And maybe you'll burn with me. Celeste didn't know what time it was when she woke, only that the room was dark, her silk sheets tangled around her legs, and the lingering scent of gardenias clung to her pillow like a ghost. She reached for the other side of the bed instinctively and found it empty. Cold. Isadora was gone. Panic rose in her throat before she could silence it. She sat up, heart thudding, eyes adjusting to the low light. Her skin still buzzed from the night before, From the kiss that had shattered everything, from the touch that had undone years of control in a single, perfect collapse. She pulled on her robe, tied it too tight, and stormed into the hallway barefoot, drawn by the sound of movement in the kitchen. There she was, Isadora, standing with her back to her, barefoot too, in nothing but a long t-shirt and a pair of boy shorts, stirring a pot on the stove as if the world hadn't changed. Celeste leaned against the doorway, watching. Her voice came out quieter than intended. You just left. Isadora didn't flinch. You fell asleep. You could have stayed. Would you have wanted that? Celeste hesitated. Yes. That was new. That was terrifying. Isadora turned slowly. The soft kitchen light made her look unreal. Glowing skin, sleepy eyes, lips still slightly swollen.
So say it, she said.
Say what you want. Celeste's throat tightened. I want you.
How?
Isadora asked. Because you can't have me in pieces. Not just at night, not just behind closed doors. Celeste stepped into the room, her voice low. I don't know how to do this. Try. Isadora met her halfway, placing the spoon on the counter. Start with breakfast. Celeste blinked. You're making me breakfast? I'm making us breakfast. A beat of silence. Celeste exhaled slowly. You make me lose every inch of control I have. Good. Isadora smiled. Maybe control was never the point. They ate in silence, knees brushing beneath the table, glances exchanged like stolen breaths. But as the sun crept higher, reality began to slide back into the edges of Celeste's vision. Claudine called twice. Her lawyer left urgent messages. A competitor had made a move on one of her contracts, and a board meeting was now mandatory. She stood from the table with the grace of a woman putting her armor back on. I have to go, she said, slipping into her role again. There's a crisis. There always is, Isadora said, not unkindly. But okay. Go save your empire. Celeste paused at the door. Will you still be here when I get back? Unless you tell me not to be, Isadora said. I won't, Celeste replied. And then she left, heart pounding, chest tight, more afraid of losing that girl in her kitchen than of losing millions. At the office, she was a storm. Her presence dominated the room, her voice sliced through strategy and excuses, but even as she crushed her competition, part of her mind stayed in that sunlit kitchen. Later that night, when she returned, the mansion was dark. Too dark. She called out. Isadora? No answer. Her pulse quickened. She checked the kitchen, the library, the garden, the guest wing. Nothing. Finally, outside, under the pergola laced with jasmine, she found her. Isadora sat cross-legged on the cushioned bench, a blanket around her shoulders, staring at the stars like they were speaking to her. I called your name, Celeste said. Isadora didn't look away. I needed air. Celeste sat beside her, slowly. You scared me. That's new, Isadora said gently. You being scared. I'm not used to wondering if someone will be there when I get home. That's the thing about letting people in, Isadora said, turning to her. They can leave. Or stay. But you don't get to control which. Celeste stared at her, something raw breaking the surface of her voice. I've never let anyone stay. And me. Isadora whispered. Are you going to try to push me out too? I don't know how to be soft, Celeste confessed. I don't know how to love without breaking something. Then break me, Isadora said, reaching out. If it means you'll finally feel something real. Celeste's breath hitched. She leaned in slowly, forehead resting against Isadora's. You're real, she whispered. You're the only thing that feels real. They kissed again. Slower this time. Deeper. No urgency, no fear, just need. Just connection. And that night, Isadora stayed. Not as a maid. Not as a guest. As something unnamed. Something dangerous. Something beautiful. But the world outside wasn't sleeping. Somewhere, across town, a reporter clicked through an anonymous email. The subject line, Laurent scandal, relationship with hired help. Attached were 2 grainy photos. One of Celeste kissing Isadora near the service door. Another of them through the window of the music room, foreheads pressed together, lost in something intimate. The reporter grinned. This story would be worth millions. Back at the mansion, Celeste slept with Isadora in her arms for the first time. And for the last time, before everything came crashing down. The morning after was golden, quiet, deceptively peaceful. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows of Celeste's bedroom, brushing over the white sheets, the high ceilings, the bare skin tangled in expensive linens. Celeste woke slowly, her senses thick with warmth, softness, and the unfamiliar weight of another body beside her. Isadora. Still asleep. One hand under her cheek, lashes fanned against her skin, lips slightly parted. Celeste didn't move for a long time, just watched her. Studied the impossibility of it, that someone had cracked her open without even trying. The air between them felt sacred. Fragile. But perfect. She reached out and gently pushed a curl from Isadora's face. The girl stirred, stretching with a small sound before blinking her eyes open. You stayed, Celeste whispered. You let me, Isadora whispered back. They kissed again, slower this time. Lazy and quiet. Full of something almost terrifying. Afterward, Celeste sat on the edge of the bed, slipping on her robe as her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it absently, not expecting much, then froze. Her screen was flooded. Missed calls. Dozens. Emails, marked urgent. News alerts.
Headlines.
And one photo, at the top of every feed. Her, kissing Isadora. On her own property. From a distance, but unmistakable. Her stomach dropped. What is it? Isadora asked, sitting up slowly. What's wrong? Celeste couldn't speak. Her thumb tapped the first link. Loron Empire under fire. Rumors of secret relationship with staff member. She stood up abruptly, pacing.
No.
No. Isadora followed her, half wrapped in the sheets. Celeste, what happened? She turned. Someone leaked photos of us. Someone's been watching. What? They know. The press. The board. Everyone. Isadora's face went pale. What are they saying? That I'm unprofessional. That I abused my position. That I hired you for. She choked on the word, voice shaking with rage.
For this.
They're painting you as a plaything. And me as a scandal. Celeste's phone rang again.
Claudine.
She didn't answer. You need to leave, she said, voice suddenly flat. What? You can't be here. Not now. You're kicking me out? Isadora blinked, stunned. To protect you, Celeste snapped. They'll dig into your life. Your family. They'll ruin you just to get to me. I don't care. Well, I do. The words exploded from her like gunfire. Don't you see? They'll twist this into something ugly. They already have. And I can't protect you if you're standing next to me. Isadora's voice broke. But I don't want to leave. It doesn't matter what we want anymore, Celeste said, quieter now. It matters what survives. A beat. A silence so heavy it cracked the air. And then Isadora, heartbroken, stepped back. Fine. Celeste turned away, unable to watch her leave. But she heard every sound, the rustle of clothes pulled on hastily, the soft zip of her bag, the click of the door. And then, silence. The worst kind. Downstairs, Claudine was already waiting with coffee and fire in her eyes. You've gone viral, she said. And not in the fun way. I saw. The board wants answers. Your investors are pulling out. They think you've compromised the brand. That this is an HR nightmare. Tell them it's not true. They won't believe me. They barely believe you. Celeste stared out the window. I'll handle it.
How?
Claudine challenged. By throwing her under the bus? Pretending she seduced you. Celeste didn't answer. You love her, Claudine said. Don't. You do. And for the first time since I met you, you look human. I won't let you bury that just because the world's ugly. It's not about me, Celeste said. It's about her. She didn't ask for any of this. Then don't let it end like this. Celeste said nothing. But that night, alone in her study, she pulled up the article again and stared at the photo, not with shame, but with longing. She zoomed in, on Isadora's hand tangled in her shirt, on the way they leaned into each other like gravity was pulling them closer. That moment hadn't been scandalous. It had been real. And she knew now, walking away from it wasn't saving Isadora. It was losing her. The next day, a press conference was called. Reporters packed the courtyard. Microphones pointed like weapons. Celeste stood at the center of it all, dressed in black, jaw set. Someone shouted, "Is it true? Are you in a relationship with your employee?" Her eyes swept the crowd. Yes. A pause.
Gasps.
Cameras flashed. And if that costs me everything, so be it. But I won't lie about what I feel. She stepped back, ignoring the chaos, the shouting. She didn't stay to answer follow-ups. She had somewhere else to be. She left the mansion, got in her car, and drove. Across the city, through traffic, toward the small apartment address Claudine had found. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. Her heart pounded. But she rang the bell.
Once. Twice.
No answer. Then footsteps. A door opening. Isadora stood there, barefoot, in pajamas, eyes red. And then hope. "You really came," she whispered. Celeste stepped closer. "I didn't just come," she said. "I told the world about us." "Why?" Celeste's voice broke. "Because I love you. And I'm not hiding it anymore." Isadora launched forward, wrapping her arms around her neck, kissing her like she couldn't breathe without it. Celeste kissed her back harder. With everything she had. With everything she'd never said. And as the city spun outside them, they stayed like that, pressed together, tangled in truth, no longer hiding. But far from safe. The silence in Isadora's apartment was thick with everything that hadn't been said before. Every breathless look, every swallowed word, every quiet ache that had stretched between them for weeks. And now, Celeste was here. Not as a storm, not as a fortress, but as a woman stripped bare by love. "Say it again," Isadora whispered, her fingers brushing Celeste's jaw like she was still unsure this moment was real. "I love you," Celeste said, no hesitation now. Her voice was raw, imperfect, finally human. "And I'm done pretending I don't." Isadora kissed her before the tears could fall, a kiss full of fire and pain and relief, one that felt like everything they'd lost and everything they were still fighting for. Celeste pulled her close like she might never let go again. But when they parted, the truth pressed between them like glass. "It's not over," Isadora said. "The press. The backlash. I know. You could lose everything." "I already almost did," Celeste said, brushing a strand of hair from Isadora's face. "And it wasn't the money or the company that scared me. It was the thought of losing you." They sat on the small couch, curled together, the weight of the world pressing in from the outside. Celeste's phone wouldn't stop vibrating, calls from lawyers, from the board, from her PR team. She ignored them all. "What happens now?" Isadora asked. Celeste exhaled. "We hold the line. We let the world spin. But I won't run again. Not from this. I'm not going to be your secret. You never were." The next morning, everything exploded. The story was everywhere: television, tabloids, social media. The headlines were merciless. Ruthless CEO caught in staff affair. Abuse of power? Celeste Lawrence empire tainted by forbidden romance. Where is the Maid now? Photos, interviews with anonymous staff members, speculation about Isadora's past, her motives, her background. Celeste's legal team begged her to release a statement distancing herself from Isadora. She refused. "If they fire me, they fire me," she told Claudine. "But I won't be the woman who lies to keep her seat at the table." Claudine, loyal as ever, stood beside her. "Then we fight." Meanwhile, Isadora went into hiding, not by Celeste's order, but by necessity. Paparazzi had shown up outside her building. Strangers shouted slurs in the grocery store. Her phone buzzed constantly, some with sympathy, others with poison. She deleted every account, turned off her phone, hid inside the walls of Celeste's penthouse, the only place that still felt remotely safe. "I'm sorry," Celeste whispered one night, sitting beside her on the floor with a bottle of wine between them. This should have never touched you like this. I knew it would, Isadora said. But I still chose you.
Why?
Celeste asked, eyes haunted. Because behind everything, the power, the sharpness, the walls, I saw someone starving to be loved. And I wanted to be the one who fed you. Celeste stared at her, overwhelmed. You're too good for this world. Then be the one who makes it worth staying in. Days passed. Then a week. Sponsors pulled out. Clients threatened to leave. Protesters stood outside the Loron Tower with signs. Claudine delivered updates like bullets. They want your resignation. Let them want, Celeste said. Do they know what they're asking me to give up? Everything, Claudine said. And still, Celeste interrupted, it's not more than what I've already found. That night, she opened her laptop and wrote something herself. Not a cold press release. Not a denial. A letter.
Public.
Personal. A declaration. To anyone reading this expecting me to apologize, stop. I'm not sorry for falling in love. I'm not sorry for kissing her. I'm not sorry for finally feeling something real in a world made of performance and power. What I am sorry for is a world that sees vulnerability as a liability and intimacy as scandal. Her name is Isadora. And she is not a headline. She is not a mistake. She is the most honest, beautiful thing that has ever happened to me. And if that ends my career, I'll face that end proudly, with her hand in mine. The letter went viral in hours. Some called it unprofessional. Some called it revolutionary. Others, many others, called it brave. And slowly, the tide began to turn. Celebrities reposted it. Journalists reframed the narrative. People began asking different questions. What if love isn't a weakness? What if honesty is power? Still, Celeste didn't relax. Not fully. Not until one night, Claudine entered her office holding a small envelope. You should open this, she said. Celeste tore it open. Inside. The board has reconsidered. Your position stands. No action will be taken. At the bottom, one handwritten note from the chairman himself. You may have shaken the foundation, but you reminded us what leadership should look like. Do not let this harden you again. Celeste dropped into her chair. Silent. Shaking. Claudine smiled. You did it. We did it, Celeste said. Then, without a second thought, she left the office, got in her car, and drove back to the penthouse. Isadora was on the balcony, staring out over the city. You're still standing, she said as Celeste stepped behind her. And we're still together. Celeste wrapped her arms around her.
Yes.
And this time, we're not hiding. They stood there in silence, watching the lights of the city blur into stars. The storm had passed, but their story was just beginning. Celeste had never been good at quiet. Her life had been defined by motion, by conquest, by the relentless grind of building and rebuilding, defending and advancing. But now, for the first time, she stood still. And it didn't feel like failure. It felt like peace. Not silence. Not emptiness.
But peace.
Isadora lay curled beside her on the couch, a book half finished in her lap, one leg draped lazily over Celeste's. The television was on but muted, casting a soft glow over their skin. Rain tapped the windows in gentle rhythm. Celeste glanced down at the woman who had rewritten every law she'd ever obeyed. You're calm, she murmured. Suspiciously calm. You're suspiciously tense, Isadora countered without looking up. What are you thinking about? The way people are still watching us. Waiting for us to fall apart. Then let them watch, Isadora said. They'll get bored eventually. Celeste smiled faintly, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The storm had passed, yes, but the sky still held the memory of lightning. There's still backlash, she said quietly. Anonymous threats. Sponsors pressuring the board. Investors trying to leverage the scandal. And Isadora looked up now, steady and unshaken. Is that supposed to scare me? Because I've already seen what losing you looks like. And I survived that. I'm not going anywhere. You make it sound so easy. It's not easy, Isadora said. It's worth it. Celeste let out a long breath and ran her fingers through Isadora's hair. How did I survive before you? You didn't, Isadora whispered. You existed. There's a difference. That night, they cooked together.
Badly.
Celeste burned the garlic. Isadora dropped a glass. They laughed. They kissed. And for once, neither of them flinched from the closeness. They didn't talk about what came next, about what their relationship would look like in a world still sharpening knives behind their backs. They just existed, together, one breath at a time. But the world hadn't forgotten. At a charity gala 2 weeks later, the vultures returned. The event was elegant, overdone, full of money and menace. Celeste walked in wearing midnight blue, Isadora at her side in a soft champagne silk that hugged her waist like a secret. The whispers began instantly. Some people smiled too hard. Others looked away. One woman, a board member's wife, approached with venom behind her pearls. "Miss Lauron," she said, voice dripping. "So lovely to see you back in public. And with such unconventional company." Celeste's smile was lethal. "You mean intelligent, self-made, and morally upright?"
Yes.
"I do tend to surround myself with those types." The woman's lips twitched.
Well.
"Let's hope your taste in women doesn't cost the foundation any more donors." "Let's hope your mouth doesn't cost you your dignity," Isadora said, stepping forward before Celeste could speak. The woman blinked, stunned. Celeste's chest swelled with pride. They moved on. Together. Later that evening, Isadora slipped away to find the powder room, and Celeste waited by the open bar. That's when someone from the shadows stepped beside her. A man in a tailored suit. Harrison Vale. A former investor. And someone Celeste had once considered a friend. "You're really willing to sink the whole ship for her?" he asked casually. "She's not worth your reputation." Celeste turned to him slowly. "Do you know what's fascinating about powerful men?" "What?" "They always assume a woman has something to lose. As if we built our lives with their permission." Harrison tilted his glass. "You'll regret this." "No," Celeste said. "I'll regret not doing it sooner." She walked away before he could speak again. Found Isadora near the window, cheeks flushed from too many glances, too many eyes. "You okay?" Celeste asked. "Fine," Isadora said. "Except I'm starting to hate your world." Celeste's voice softened. "Then we'll make a new one. Just us. Just us." They left early. Back at the penthouse, Isadora stood on the balcony, staring at the skyline. "Tell me something," she said. "Anything. I want to take you somewhere." "Where?" "Anywhere you've ever wanted to go. Anywhere no one knows us. Somewhere I can learn to just be with you, without fighting the entire world to do it." Isadora turned, eyes soft. "You'd leave everything?" "No," Celeste said. "I'd bring what matters with me." They kissed under the stars. And in that moment, the city didn't matter. The scandals didn't matter. The noise was gone. It was just them. And for the first time, it felt like they could finally begin. But down below, in the shadows of the building, a camera lens clicked. A figure pulled back into a black car, reviewing the images on a screen. Celeste and Isadora, kissing, touching, smiling. The man made a call. "Yeah," he said. "I've got something. And this time, it's not going to end with a love letter. She's got secrets. And we're going to find them." The first sign was small, barely noticeable. An anonymous email in Claudine's inbox, subject line, "You don't know everything about your boss." Inside, a single attachment, a screenshot, a transfer.
Large. Old.
Marked as confidential severance settlement. It was dated 6 years ago. A name she didn't recognize. But the account? It belonged to the Lauron Foundation. Claudine's stomach dropped. She immediately forwarded it to Celeste. Seconds later, the phone rang. "It's fake," Celeste said before Claudine could speak. "It's clearly manipulated." "Maybe," Claudine said, tone sharp. "But it's already in someone's hands. And if they leak this, it won't matter whether it's real or not." Celeste stood in her office, stiff, breath tight, staring out the window with the city glinting coldly beneath her. "Do we know who sent it? Blocked IP. Hidden trail. But I'd bet my life it's someone from the inside. Someone who wants your head on a spike. Then they're going to have to swing harder, Celeste muttered. But even as she said it, her throat burned. This wasn't like the scandal with Isadora. This wasn't love. This was blood in the water. And the sharks were circling. That night, she didn't tell Isadora. She should have. But as she watched her laugh on the couch, curled up in Celeste's oversized hoodie, cheeks glowing from wine, hair wild and free, she couldn't do it. Couldn't steal that light from her. What? Isadora asked, noticing her silence. Nothing, Celeste said, forcing a smile. Just memorizing you. Isadora melted instantly, crawling into her lap. You're being weird. I'm being in love. Same thing, Isadora teased, and kissed her nose. But Celeste didn't sleep that night. She stared at the ceiling, Isadora breathing softly beside her, and thought of every decision she'd ever made that could come back like this. Every document. Every deal. Every silence. In the morning, she met Claudine in her office. Dig into it, she said. Everything. Every file. Every signature. I want to know what they think they have before they use it against me. Already on it. Claudine paused. And, Celeste, if this gets worse, it won't. If it does, Claudine insisted, don't try to handle it alone. Don't shut us out. Don't shut her out. Celeste looked away. No promises. Meanwhile, Isadora was feeling the shift. The tension in Celeste's shoulders. The way her smiles didn't quite reach her eyes. The way she kissed her like it might be the last time. And when she asked what was wrong, Celeste always said the same thing. Nothing. Just work. But she didn't know that Isadora had started noticing the emails. The hushed calls. The code words Claudine used when she thought no one was listening. So Isadora did what Celeste never expected. She investigated. She hacked into a shared folder when Celeste left her tablet open one night. She found the screenshots. The documents. The whispers of something darker than a scandal. Something that reeked of cover-ups.
Bribes. Guilt.
She didn't understand it all. But she knew what it meant. Someone was trying to destroy the woman she loved. And worse, Celeste hadn't told her. The betrayal stung. Not because she felt entitled to every truth, but because they weren't supposed to have secrets anymore. So the next morning, Isadora waited until Celeste came back from a run, her face flushed, headphones around her neck, and met her at the door. We need to talk. Celeste froze. Okay. No lies this time. Celeste's expression hardened just a little. You went through my files. You left them open. That's not the point. No. The point is that you're hiding something serious and you weren't going to tell me. To protect you. That's not your decision to make, Celeste. Isadora's voice cracked. You said we were in this together. But the second things get ugly, you treat me like I'm breakable. Because you are, damn it. Celeste snapped. You don't know how brutal this world is. Then let me learn. With you. Next to you. Not behind you like some shadow you get to keep safe and untouched. Celeste exhaled, trembling. I can't lose you. Then stop pushing me away. Silence. Then, there was a payout, Celeste admitted. Years ago. I didn't authorize it. But it came from my foundation. It was tied to a sexual harassment complaint against a partner. One I cut ties with immediately, but the settlement went through before I could stop it. And now they're trying to say I buried it. Isadora's face softened. Did you? No, Celeste said. But I didn't fight it either. I stayed quiet. And maybe that's the same thing. Who sent the email? I don't know. Isadora reached for her hand. Then let's find out. Celeste stared at her. You're not afraid? Terrified, Isadora said. But I'm more afraid of a future where we stop trusting each other. Celeste pulled her into a fierce kiss, one that tasted like fire and survival. That night, the two of them pored over files side by side. Celeste explaining details. Isadora spotting patterns. They fought. They cursed. They drank too much. They laughed in moments they shouldn't have. And somewhere between midnight and 3 a.m., Isadora stumbled on something. This name, she whispered. Dalton. What about it? It's listed in the severance paperwork, but it's also the name on an email Claudine forwarded last month. About a speaking event. Celeste went pale. Richard Dalton was one of my original investors. He left the board after I refused his expansion proposal. Could he be the leak? He has the money, the grudge, and the connections. Celeste stood. Then we expose him.
How?
Celeste smiled for the first time that night.
Cold.
Ruthless.
Alive.
By playing the game better than he does. Celeste hadn't been this alive in years. Not the polished, press-ready version of life she had worn like armor, but this, the sharp, unfiltered edge of strategy, vengeance, and fire. Only this time, she wasn't playing to protect her empire. She was playing for them. We hit him first, she told Isadora, pacing the study, the city lights flickering against the windows like a live wire. Before he makes his move public, we bury his credibility. What do we have? Isadora asked, seated on the floor with her laptop, barefoot and determined. Only rumors so far. But I know Dalton. He's sloppy when he's angry. He'll have left something behind. Then we find it. Over the next 3 days, they became a machine. Claudine joined their silent rebellion without needing to be asked. She brought sealed folders, login credentials, NDAs from years ago. The air in the penthouse buzzed with the weight of secrets unraveling. Celeste hadn't left the building since the confrontation. She canceled meetings, skipped events. Her PR team panicked. She didn't care. This wasn't about appearances anymore. It was personal. It was war. And Isadora was right there beside her, reading contracts, cross-referencing dates, asking questions no assistant ever would. Here, Isadora said on the third night, tapping the screen. Dalton's nonprofit arm. Philanthropic Initiatives Alliance. Look at these donations. Same 5 shell companies. And one of them matches a vendor used in the old settlement file. Celeste leaned in. Her mouth twitched. He's been laundering reputation through fake donations. Which means, Isadora added, if we can prove his money funded the payout, it links him directly to the cover-up. And if that goes public, he loses his platform. And his protection. They moved fast after that. Claudine contacted a trusted journalist. Celeste crafted a document trail. Isadora found an old email chain with Dalton's assistant that all but confirmed he'd signed off on the silent payout. The pieces fell together like dominoes, quiet, clean, deadly. On the 4th day, the exposé hit the front page. The man behind the scandal, how former Loron investor Richard Dalton engineered a smear campaign to reclaim power. Within hours, Dalton denied everything, called it slander. But screenshots, emails, financial links, it was all there. More damning than the leak itself was the motive, a bitter ex-partner trying to use Celeste's vulnerability to claw his way back into relevance. And now he was the one bleeding. Celeste stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the backlash unfold. Isadora came up behind her, slipping her arms around her waist. You did it, she whispered. We did it, Celeste corrected, turning in her arms. You kept me from collapsing. You let yourself be seen. That's the only reason we're still standing. They kissed slow, deep, breathless. But this time, it didn't feel like escape. It felt like coming home. The following week brought peace Celeste didn't trust at first. The board released a statement reaffirming their confidence in her leadership. The press shifted its focus to Dalton's fall from grace. And the hate slowly began to quiet. Not vanish, but fade. It was the first time in months that Celeste didn't feel hunted. She and Isadora finally emerged together again, publicly, arm in arm at a museum fundraiser. Some people stared. Others applauded. But no one questioned it now. And Celeste? She didn't flinch. That night, after the gala, they returned home to find a note slipped under the door. No envelope. No signature. Just 6 words, typed and centered on plain white paper. You're not safe. Neither is she. Celeste's blood ran cold. She showed it to Claudine, who paled. A threat. A warning, Celeste corrected. But from who? Dalton's finished. Someone else, maybe. Or someone protecting him. Should we involve the police? Not yet, Celeste said. I want to know what they know first. That night, she held Isadora tighter than usual. And when Isadora asked what was wrong, Celeste didn't lie this time. She showed her the note. Do you want me to leave? Isadora asked quietly. Never, Celeste said without hesitation. Then we face it together. They slept light that night. Every creak in the penthouse felt louder, every shadow deeper. But they stayed side by side, fingers intertwined beneath the covers. The next morning, Celeste woke before dawn. Alone. Panic slammed through her chest, but then she heard the balcony door click and found Isadora standing barefoot in the early light, sipping tea, calm despite everything. Couldn't sleep, she said when Celeste joined her. You okay? I am now. Celeste kissed her shoulder, held her from behind. Do you regret it? Isadora asked softly. Any of this? Not for a single second. Even the chaos? Especially the chaos, Celeste said. Because it brought me you. But the unease stayed with them all day. And that evening, Claudine called with news. We traced the printer that produced the note, she said. It's from inside the Loron Tower. Someone close. Possibly staff. Celeste's body went rigid.
Who?
I don't know yet, Claudine said. But this wasn't Alton. This is someone still watching you. Isadora was across the room when Celeste ended the call. What now? She asked. Now, Celeste said, voice low. We stop waiting for them to strike again. We find them first. And the war wasn't over after all. Celeste had always believed in controlling the narrative, in knowing every piece on the board before the first move was made. But now, the board was shifting beneath her feet. Someone was inside her walls. Watching. Listening. Waiting. And she had no name. No face. Just a note with 6 words and the cold certainty that whoever had sent it wasn't finished. No one prints something like that inside my tower without leaving a trail, she told Claudine the next morning, voice clipped, pacing the conference room they had closed off as a war room. Start digging into every staff login, every ID badge swipe, anyone who accessed a network printer in the last 72 hours. Already started, Claudine replied, typing furiously. But there are a lot of ghost IDs. Maintenance logins. People who've been with the company for years without background checks being updated. Fix it, Celeste said. Tighten everything. No more blind spots. Isadora entered quietly, 2 coffees in hand, dark circles under her eyes but spine straight. I scanned the envelope again, she said, placing a USB drive on the table. There were faint imprints from another sheet of paper pressed on top. I enhanced it. Claudine plugged the drive in. A few clicks, and the screen filled with the ghostly outline of a name.
Faint.
Half-formed. But legible. S. Marlowe. Claudine blinked. Why does that sound familiar? Celeste's stomach dropped. Because it should have been forgotten. She stood still for a long moment, then whispered, Sabrina Marlowe. Who is she? Isadora asked. Celeste didn't answer at first. She sat down slowly, eyes distant. My first scandal. Before I had a name anyone cared about. Sabrina was my assistant when I started building the foundation.
Smart. Quick.
Ruthless. She wanted more than I could offer. Ownership, equity, control. When I said no, she filed a claim saying I'd stolen her strategy. It was false. But the board paid her off quietly to avoid drama. I was told to move forward and keep my mouth shut. You didn't fight back? Isadora asked, surprised. I wasn't Celeste Loron yet, she said bitterly. I didn't have power. I learned the game by losing first. Claudine sat back, stunned. You think she's come back? I know she has, Celeste said. The tone of the note, the precision, the fact that it started with a leak and not a demand, that's her. She's not after money. She's after revenge. Why now? Isadora asked. Because I finally have something to lose, Celeste whispered.
You.
The room went quiet. Claudine checked the HR records, and there it was. A new employee profile, Sarah M. Lee. Hired under a temp agency 6 weeks ago. Department, IT support. Assigned building, Loron Tower. The photo was edited. The name, fake. But the face, Celeste knew it. Older now. Sharper. But undeniably Sabrina. She's already inside, Celeste said. Watching everything. So what do we do? Claudine asked. We confront her? No, Celeste said. We set the trap. They crafted a plan that night. Sabrina wanted chaos. Wanted exposure. So Celeste would give her a taste, but on her terms. A public event. Controlled press. Enough tension to tempt Sabrina into action. She's arrogant, Celeste said. She'll want a front row seat. The event would be a panel on leadership hosted at the tower itself. Claudine organized it within hours. Invitations went out. Security was tripled. Every camera monitored. But only a few people knew the real purpose. That night, Celeste sat on the balcony with Isadora, holding her hand tightly, both of them wrapped in a single blanket. You don't have to come tomorrow, Celeste said quietly. I do, Isadora replied. Because I'm not just someone you protect. I'm your partner. Celeste kissed her temple. I don't deserve you. But you have me. The next day, the panel began like any other. Camera crews, lights, champagne served in tall glasses. Celeste was poised, magnetic, every word controlled. Isadora stood near the back, beside Claudine, eyes scanning the crowd. And then they saw her. Sabrina, dressed like a guest, holding a press badge that had slipped through security, standing near the exit, waiting. Isadora moved first, crossed the room fast, intercepted her with a smile. Enjoying the view? Sabrina blinked. You must be the maid. And you must be the ghost, Isadora said. You've aged well for a parasite. Sabrina's lips twitched. So loyal. I almost respect that. You should leave before this gets embarrassing. Oh, sweetheart, Sabrina said, leaning in, voice low and venomous. This isn't about embarrassment. It's about watching her lose everything she loves while she knows I'm the one doing it. And yet, Isadora whispered, stepping aside, you walked right into a trap. Sabrina turned just as Claudine and two security guards stepped in behind her. We already pulled your badge, Claudine said coolly. You're being recorded. Every word. Every face. And we've documented your unauthorized access to our internal systems. This is illegal, Sabrina hissed. So is blackmail, Claudine replied. And slander. And forgery. Celeste walked up then, calm, composed, devastating. Hello, Sabrina. I see failure still clings to you like perfume. Sabrina's eyes darkened. You should have stayed afraid. I did, Celeste said. For a long time. But not anymore. Security escorted Sabrina out. Quietly. Officially. Legally. It wouldn't be the last battle. But it was the turning point. That night, Celeste returned to the penthouse with Isadora, her body aching with exhaustion, her chest full of something fragile. You were brilliant, Isadora whispered. You saved it all. No, Celeste said. We did. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small box. Isadora stared. What is that? Celeste opened it slowly. A thin silver band. Elegant. Timeless. Her voice was barely a breath. You walked through fire for me. You fought with me, not just for me. I never thought I could have something this real. But I do. I have you. And I want you forever. Isadora's eyes filled instantly. Celeste, I know it's soon. I know it's madness. But I love you. And I want the whole damn world to know it. So, she dropped to one knee. Will you marry me? Isadora knelt down with her, both of them on the floor, foreheads pressed together. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. And for the first time, Celeste Loron let herself cry, because love had made her strong enough to be soft. The next few weeks moved like something out of someone else's life. Too bright, too soft, too good. And yet it was real. All of it. The engagement. The laughter. The stolen kisses in the elevator. The warm coffee cups in bed. The way Celeste looked at Isadora now, like she was the answer to every question she'd never dared ask. For the first time, the Loron estate felt like a home. It held music, the scent of gardenias, half-drunk wine glasses, and traces of their love in every hallway. Celeste was different now.
Still sharp.
Still commanding, but lighter. And Isadora, she had bloomed into something fierce and radiant, no longer a quiet maid surviving in someone else's mansion, but a woman walking shoulder to shoulder with the most powerful name in the city. Yet even as they planned their wedding in whispered conversations under the covers, Celeste couldn't ignore the lingering shadows. Sabrina's threat was neutralized but not gone. Legal proceedings had begun, but influence like hers didn't vanish overnight. And Celeste didn't believe in luck, only in preparation. So she kept a team watching, kept the building secure, and quietly, carefully, started shifting assets away from the vulnerable corners of her empire. "You don't have to live in fight mode anymore," Isadora told her one night as they sat in the garden under string lights. "You already won." "I didn't win," Celeste said softly. "I just haven't lost yet." But then she glanced sideways at Isadora's bare feet curled under her, the way her fingers played with the engagement ring like she couldn't believe it was real. "Except you. You're the only thing I won without trying." Isadora smiled and leaned into her. "I'll remind you every day." Wedding plans started small, a private ceremony, just the two of them and Claudine as witness. But word got out, of course it did. The media turned it into a frenzy. Offers came flooding in, luxury venues, designer gowns, magazine exclusives. "We could sell the rights and donate the money," Claudine suggested. "Use the hype to fund the women's shelter project you've been dreaming about." "Let's make it ours first," Isadora said. "Then let the world in." Celeste agreed. They chose a date. A hidden vineyard in the south of France. A guest list of 15.
Peace.
But peace never lasted long in Celeste's life. It began with a single phone call. Claudine answered it. A voice on the other end.
Calm.
Controlled.
Male.
"Tell her she doesn't know everything about the woman she's marrying." Claudine's hand went cold around the phone. "Who is this?" Let's just say not every part of Isadora's past is as clean as she believes.
Click.
Silence. Claudine stared at the phone for a long time. She didn't believe it. Not really. But something twisted in her gut. A tiny voice whispering, "What if?" She sat on the information for 2 days. Then, reluctantly, told Celeste. "It could be nothing," she said quickly. "Someone trying to plant doubt. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious." Celeste didn't hesitate. "Look into it." "You're sure?" "If someone's going to dig into her past, I'd rather it be us than a stranger with a blog and a grudge." Claudine nodded. Discreet. Completely. Celeste didn't tell Isadora. She hated herself for it. But her instinct screamed, "Don't blindside yourself again." So she waited. Waited for Claudine to return with nothing. But she didn't. She returned with a file. A thin one, but heavy enough. "Her birth name isn't Isadora Moreno," Claudine said, placing the folder on the desk. "It's Isa Rodriguez. Her mother changed it when she was 9. New school. New town. No criminal record, no scandal." But she hesitated. There was a sealed court file. "Family services. Confidential." I couldn't access the details. But something happened. Celeste opened the file. Looked at the single black and white photo attached. A younger Isadora. Hollow-eyed. Tired. Hurt. "Someone abused her," she said quietly. "Did she hurt them back?" Claudine shrugged. "We don't know." But she never mentioned it. Because she didn't want to be seen as broken. Or maybe, Claudine said gently, she thought if you saw it, you'd see her differently. Celeste closed the file and stared out the window. That night, Isadora curled up beside her, warm and humming softly, oblivious. Celeste watched her sleep, listened to her breath, and wondered what pain lived under that skin. The next morning, over breakfast, Celeste placed the file between them on the kitchen table. Isadora froze. "You looked into me." Someone called Claudine. Said, "I didn't know you. I wanted to prove them wrong." Isadora didn't open it. Her hands trembled. "And now?" Celeste reached across the table, placed her hand over hers. "Now I want you to tell me. Not the file. Not the whispers. Just you. Isadora swallowed hard. He was my stepfather, she said. He hurt me. My mom knew, but didn't want to lose him.
So I ran.
I told someone. We ended up in a shelter. I changed my name to protect myself. Then I never looked back. Celeste's voice cracked. You never had to tell me. Not if it hurt. But I wanted to, Isadora said. I just didn't want to be that girl anymore. The one who survived. I wanted to be someone who chose their life, not someone who escaped it. Celeste leaned across the table and kissed her. Deep and slow. You are the strongest woman I've ever met, she whispered. Not because you survived, but because you became this after it. Isadora broke. Just for a second. Tears spilled, quiet and shaking. Celeste held her through all of it. No questions. No demands. Just presence. Just love. And when the storm passed, they sat in silence, hands clasped tightly between coffee mugs. That night, Celeste added one more name to the guest list. Anonymously, a woman named Rosa Moreno, Isadora's mother, who had, in recent years, reached out, apologized.
Tried.
You don't have to see her, Celeste said, but she's asking to try again. If you're ready. Isadora stared at the invitation. I don't know. Then we wait, Celeste said. Together. As the wedding date drew closer, the world quieted again. Not fully, but enough. And for the first time, Celeste stopped waiting for something to ruin it. She was ready, and she would fight for this. With every part of herself. The vineyard smelled like lavender and warm stone, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the hills. A breeze danced through the olive trees, rustling the leaves like a whispered blessing. It was quiet, secluded,
Safe.
and perfect. Celeste stood barefoot in the middle of the field, holding a pair of white heels in one hand, her veil fluttering lightly behind her. She'd insisted on arriving a week early, partly to escape the world, but mostly because she wanted to memorize every inch of this place before she married the woman who had ruined and rebuilt her life. Isadora was behind her somewhere, in one of the stone guest houses, probably rehearsing her vows aloud and making fun of herself for crying at her own words. Celeste hadn't written hers yet. Every time she tried, it felt too small, too scripted. How did you write vows for the woman who had watched you burn and still walked into the fire? For the woman who had taken your coldest silence and answered it with warmth? For the woman who never asked you to change, but made you want to become someone who deserved her? She sat down on the grass, legs stretched out, heels forgotten beside her. Her phone buzzed softly, Claudine. Final guest count confirmed. Florist arriving at 6. Your mother called to say she's proud of you. Celeste exhaled. That still felt foreign. Her mother had said it exactly once before, when Celeste had sold her first company. But this? Loving a woman publicly, defiantly, with the entire world watching? That had never been part of the plan her mother imagined. But here they were. And maybe, finally, Celeste had earned a kind of pride that wasn't rooted in success. She stood and walked back toward the house. Isadora met her on the porch, barefoot too, holding 2 glasses of wine. I was about to come find you, she said. You always find me, Celeste said, and took the glass. They sat down together on the porch steps, toes brushing the dry grass, sunset washing them both in gold. Do you think we'll be happy? Isadora asked softly. Celeste looked at her for a long moment. I already am. Even after all of it? Especially after all of it. They sat there until the sun sank completely and stars began to climb into the sky like promises. That night, Celeste wrote her vows by candlelight, ink smudged with the press of her palm, words pulled from a part of her she didn't know existed until Isadora carved it open. I don't believe in fate. I believe in choice. And I choose you. Not because I need you to complete me, but because you remind me that I was never broken. I choose you because you challenge me, calm me, undo me. I choose you because I don't know how to be myself anymore without hearing your laughter somewhere in the background. I choose you in storm and sun, in chaos and silence, forever. She folded the paper, sealed it in her journal, and didn't look at it again. The next day moved like silk, slow, beautiful, delicate. Friends and family arrived in small clusters. Claudine took over with ruthless grace. The vineyard was transformed with wildflowers, silk ribbons, candles strung across low branches. Every inch of it felt like them. By late afternoon, Celeste stood in front of a full-length mirror in the small bridal room, lacing the back of her dress with unsteady hands. It wasn't white. It was pearl, soft, shimmery, barely tinted silver when the light hit it. Not traditional, not expected, but exactly right. Claudine entered quietly, adjusted her earrings, and looked at her with something dangerously close to tears. "You look gentle," she said. Celeste arched an eyebrow. "That's a terrible word for a former CEO. Then consider it the highest compliment I've ever given you." Claudine stepped forward and placed something into her palm.
A ring.
Simple.
Gold.
"It was my mother's," she said. "She gave it to me when I came out. I always thought I'd give it to someone who'd protect love like it deserved to be protected. You're that person now." Celeste's throat tightened. She nodded once, unable to speak, and hugged Claudine silently. A moment later, the music began.
Soft.
Classical. Familiar. Her cue. She stepped outside. Everyone stood. The breeze caught her veil. And then, Isadora. At the end of the aisle. In a gown like sunlight, hair falling in waves, eyes locked only on her. Celeste didn't blink. Didn't breathe. She walked forward like the earth itself was pulling her into that moment. The ceremony was brief. Tender. They stood under a small arch of wildflowers and jasmine and spoke their vows without microphones, as if no one else existed. "I don't want easy," Isadora said. "I want you. Even when it's hard. Even when it hurts. Because you make it worth it." "I didn't believe in forever," Celeste said. "Until I looked at you and thought, of course." There wasn't a dry eye in the vineyard. The kiss was soft. Then hungry. Then full of laughter. A dance began.
Slow.
Messy.
Real.
Celeste whispered into her wife's ear, "I'm going to ruin you with how much I love you." Isadora laughed and whispered back, "Then ruin me completely." They danced until the candles burned low. Until their feet hurt. Until the moon was high and the stars had heard enough of their laughter. That night, in the privacy of their room overlooking the vines, Celeste pulled Isadora close. "Did we do it?" she asked. "We did," Isadora replied. "We survived everything. And now." Celeste traced her fingers over Isadora's collarbone. "Now we live." They made love slowly, reverently, like prayer and promise and poetry all at once. And as they lay tangled in each other's arms, breathless and new again, Celeste whispered, "Whatever comes next, we face it as one." But somewhere, far away and unnoticed, an email was being drafted. A new name. A new threat. A final test neither of them saw coming. The honeymoon was quiet and blissfully uneventful. Celeste and Isadora had rented a villa near the Amalfi coast, hidden in a grove of lemon trees, where time moved slower, softer. They spent their mornings wrapped in linen sheets and each other, their afternoons walking hand in hand through tiny cliffside towns, and their nights curled on the terrace, watching stars blink above the sea. It was a kind of peace neither of them had ever believed they deserved, and now that it was theirs, they clung to it like a secret they refused to give up. For once, Celeste didn't check her phone,
Didn't answer emails.
didn't read news alerts. The world could survive without her for 2 weeks. And if it couldn't, well, she didn't care. "You're different here," Isadora whispered one night, head resting on Celeste's bare shoulder. "Lighter." "You make it easy to breathe," Celeste whispered back. "You make me feel like I exist outside my own shadow." "You've always existed. You just forgot how to feel it." Celeste turned and kissed her. "Thank you for reminding me." They didn't see the email. Not at first. It was buried under layers of spam and newsletters in an unused account. It didn't look dangerous. No threatening subject line. Just one word. "Congratulations." It came with an attachment. A file titled, "Lauron Files, Compromising Materials." And a brief message. "One last dance. Let's see what your empire is really built on. The sender's name meant nothing. No signature. No demand. But the implication was clear. Someone still had something. Someone hadn't finished what Sabrina started. And they were waiting. It was Claudine who found it first. She'd been sorting through dormant inboxes, updating passwords, and cleaning digital dust while the newlyweds were away. When she opened the file, her blood went cold. It wasn't just about Celeste. It was about Isadora. Not her childhood. Not her identity. But surveillance footage. Photos.
Dates.
A pattern. Someone had been watching her for months, even before the scandal. Before the love story. Some images were from inside the Loron estate. Others from the vineyard. One, taken just outside the bridal suite the night before the wedding. I'm not calling her, Claudine said to herself, shaking. Not until I know what this is. But there was no time. The story broke the next morning. Headlines. Again. But this time, they hit harder. Loron marriage, another PR stunt. Insider claims Celeste Loron paid off media to control narrative. New footage leaked. Isadora Rodriguez, real love or strategic cover? The footage was out of context. Spliced. Manipulated. But convincing enough to raise doubt in the same mouths that had once praised them. Celeste and Isadora were still in bed when the first alert came in. Claudine's voice, panicked, came through the speaker. You need to come home.
Now.
They returned that afternoon. The Loron estate, once their sanctuary, felt tense. Press vans hovered at the gates. Staff whispered behind doors. Online, the comments had turned venomous again. People accusing Isadora of being planted. A gold digger.
A con.
They're saying I was hired to fix your image, Isadora said, scrolling through the mess. That this was all a lie. Then we show them it wasn't. Celeste's voice was steel. No more hiding. No more silence. We face this together. That evening, they called a press conference. But this time, there were no handlers. No scripts. Just two women, standing side by side, hand in hand. Celeste stepped forward first. You've seen the headlines, she said calmly. You've heard the speculation. And here's the truth. I didn't fall in love with Isadora to fix anything. I fell in love with her because I could not. She walked into my life and made me remember how to feel. And yes, she worked for me. And yes, we fought for each other. But that doesn't make our love a scandal. It makes it a story of survival. She turned slightly, looked at Isadora. Your turn. Isadora smiled faintly and stepped forward. Her voice didn't shake. They say I was planted, that I was calculated. But you know what I was?
Brave.
I stepped into a world that wasn't mine. I stood in rooms where no one thought I belonged.
And I chose to stay.
Not because I wanted power, but because I loved someone who had never been truly seen. And now we see each other. That's all that matters. The crowd was silent. A few flashes. A few gasps. But mostly quiet. And then, from somewhere in the back, a voice. Do you plan to press charges? Celeste raised her chin.
Yes.
Our legal team is already working to track the source of the leak. The materials were edited and distributed without consent. This was a violation of privacy, not just for us, but for every person watching who's ever been told their love is too messy to deserve protection. Applause. Scattered at first. Then louder. And louder. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. And that was all they needed. After the conference, back in the car, Isadora laced her fingers through Celeste's. Do you think it'll end now? Celeste looked out the window.
No.
Not completely. But it'll get quieter. And we're louder now. Together. Then let them watch. Weeks passed. The buzz died down. The footage was traced back to an anonymous hacker paid through an offshore account. Sabrina's name surfaced again, but without proof, the charges were dropped. Claudine doubled the cybersecurity protocols. The rest of the staff signed new NDAs. Celeste reinforced the walls, but this time, she didn't build them around her heart. The love between her and Isadora remained untouched. Untouchable. One afternoon, sitting in the garden with books in their laps and tea on the table, Isadora said, "You know what I want. More power." Celeste teased. "Always.
But also peace.
A quiet life. A home we build ourselves. Maybe kids. Maybe travel. Just life." Celeste smiled. "You'll have it. Everything. You say that like you control the universe." Celeste turned to her, kissed her hand. "I don't. But I control mine. And mine belongs to you." Isadora leaned her head on Celeste's shoulder. "Then we're finally safe." "No," Celeste said gently. "But we're unbreakable." The story didn't end with revenge or ruin. It ended with two women sitting under a sun-warmed tree, building a future no one could touch. Not perfect, but real. And stronger than anything the world had to throw at them. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you.